From the kitchen to the cabin and around the world, this is Voices from the Solitude, a podcast about the coronavirus and gaming. Today I'm speaking to the president of Stronghold Games, Stephen Buonocore. We talk about the effect the coronavirus has had on his company and his optimism for the future. I'm here with president of Stronghold Games, Stephen Buonocore, and I guess I want to start with, not that I'm stalking you or anything, but sort of monitoring your Facebook posts over the last couple of weeks. You've had something of a journey with this kind of this pandemic, this COVID crisis. So can you sort of talk a little about that, your sort of defiance at the beginning and then your sort of change of heart as it's gone on?
Well, yeah, sure. So early on, when there was a lot less knowledge out there, I had posted hey guys, everybody just take a step back, calm down, go about your lives. We can still do things. We can still travel if we need to do so. I had all of these things planned to travel over the next many weeks. And then a day went by. And then another day went by. And all of a sudden, the world just started changing in a material way. So I took down the post and I posted an apology but in the beginning there was 70% of the people were like, yeah, that makes sense. Just, go about our lives. 20% were like, well, make sure you wash your hands. And 10% were like, you're crazy. This is irresponsible. You shouldn't be doing that. With more data comes more knowledge and more intelligence about how things need to operate in our current environment. So I took it down. I made an apology. I'm sorry about that. I was working with the data I had at the time. And now we are in a worldwide crisis of, once in a century kind of event that we now have to react to in a way that nobody ever thought that they would have to do. I never thought I'd live through the zombie apocalypse, which is, almost the kind of thing that's going on right now. Sheltering in place in my home, stocking up on provisions and things like that. And of course, not seeing anybody at the 4 business trips that I was supposed to take this month and next month. So absolutely astonishing that we're living through it, but with more knowledge comes better ways of dealing with a crisis.
But what made you feel the need to apologize? I can understand saying, I'm wrong. I've changed my mind. Do you think it's the nature of sort of social media, especially being a sort of a business person, that there has to be some sort of mea culpa for making a wrong decision in the past?
I spoke to someone who I respect very much, and she said to me, Stephen, you are someone who is, and I'm not stroking my ego or anything with the statement. She says, you're an icon in the industry and someone that people look up to, and take what you say very, very seriously. So therefore, you've got to be careful when an incorrect statement ends up being made. And I went, okay. Yeah, you do. Now, people post the most ridiculous. If I was crude, I would use an adjective here, but I will try not to.
You can say whatever you want. We're all adults here.
The most ridiculous effing statements on the internet, and not only pose it as fact, they'll defend it after they're pushed with actual facts. They believe nonsense that's posted. I elected to say, I was wrong. Now let's do things differently and let's listen to the current data. And I'm big enough to say when I'm wrong. I'm not a doctor. I'm not the medical profession, and we need to use that knowledge in the way that we react from now going forward. From as it evolved. Literally it was 24 hours later, 48 hours, like, oh my goodness, this is not getting better. This is getting significantly worse day to day. We have to react differently. So that's what happened. And I felt it was important for me to do that. And it was really the response to that change in my post was overwhelmingly good, and I'm happy to have added that voice of reason into the discussion.
So let's talk about sort of the practical day-to-day of Stronghold Games then. So how has your workday changed? What in terms of seeing your colleagues and all of that sort of stuff?
Right. So most of this industry, as I'm sure you know, works remote. There are very few offices of hobby game companies. I would say in North America, possibly half a dozen companies have actual offices, and that might be overestimating it. We do not have a physical office. I work out of my home office in Florida. Travis Worthington, who's the CEO of Indie Game Studios, the overarching company between Indie Boards and Cards and Stronghold Games, he's out in California. Our main team is in Indianapolis, but they work remotely from their homes and occasionally get together at like a game store to test games or a food court and things like that. So the actual operations of the company have not been impacted. The internal operations have not been impacted. Now, if we want to talk about supply chain and stuff like that, maybe, but even that for us at the moment, we're in very good position even in the looking at what's coming down the pipe and how we're going to get the products to market.
And so I assumed that you produce in China like a lot of American publishers. What is the outlook for sort of, maybe not even you specifically, but sort of the American publishers who work in China? How is the release of games going to change over the next 6-12 months?
Yeah, so we produce in actually a number of locations, and that would include China. Now with Indie Boards and Cards, we would produce most of our stuff because they were producing basically 100% of their stuff, and we were only doing maybe 30% or so. So now it's mostly in China, but we do a significant amount in Germany and even some in the United States. Terraforming Mars, I was proud to say when we first brought it out, was produced almost completely in the United States with plastics from China. And it's always, plastics always come out of China. Nobody does it in any other place.
And why is that?
75 years of injection molding facilities in China. Simple as that. They have all of it there. We have none of it here. Europe has very, very little bit. In the UK, there's a little bit, but everybody produces their plastics in China. So the bigger question, so how is this affecting, with China being the epicenter of the entire thing, how is this affecting us? And the short answer is really it is not. China is back up to 100% operation in their factory. So they had extended their Chinese New Year. It kind of happened almost at a good time. You know, if you can have a pandemic starting at a time that would not affect us, it really happened at the right time. They extended Chinese New Year by a couple of weeks, which is always the slowest part of the year for them and for us. It's good timing overall. And then ramped up the production almost immediately thereafter, and they're running full tilt. The production facilities are not in Wuhan province, which is where everything started. Obviously, every part of China was affected on some level, but it was not there. It's in Shenzhen, is the most portion of where all the production of games and much manufacturing is done. So we are okay on every level. And funny thing is, so we do all the plastics, as I mentioned, for Terraforming Mars in China, and then the final assembly is either done in Germany or the U.S. for all of the cardboard and all the paper and all the cards and everything else, U.S. or Germany. We had actually printed a significant supply in 2019 of Terraforming Mars, having no forethought that the world was going to hit a crisis, of course, just because the pricing was right, the partners wanted to print, the U.S. had capacity. So everybody said, you know what, let's overprint, air quotes, overprint. We're going to sell the games within a year, everything we did, but let's print the pricings right. So our supply of Terraforming Mars in our warehouse is fine. And even if we couldn't print for another 6 months, we would still have stock, which is probably not the case for a lot of other popular games. I think there are some that might hit an issue over the next 6 months. But overall, everything is either fully back to 100% or ramping up into that area in China.
So on that then, I want to broaden out into sort of the game industry in general. So what do you think will be the kind of ramifications of this? And how do you think, things like Kickstarter will be affected with a sort of a backlog in China?
So I'm by the way, and I am an eternal optimist on every level. So I'm going to give, most of my opinions are of the optimistic type, but obviously with the knowledge that I have, I don't think we're going to see a problem in general, either on Kickstarter or in retail sales. Now, if we absolutely hit the absolute worst case scenario, where the unemployment, because now we're talking about the economics, the macroeconomics that could occur due to this, could occur. If it really goes to over 20%, which some few have predicted could happen, then we're of course going to see a problem with game sales, because at that point we're in depression, not even recession. We're in depression level unemployment. So enough hobby gamers would be economically impacted. But if we see a pullback in the macroeconomy, even of the level that some have said, now I follow the stock market and the business cycle very closely from a personal level, of course, as well as Stronghold Games. The gross domestic product, GDP, for the second quarter is going to be what's going to be hit the most, and depending on who you believe, it's going to be down between 3% and 14%. 14% would be staggeringly bad, but possibly not to the extent of depression level, but staggeringly bad. And then the 3 to 8%. 8% seems to be where the middle is of that, of the many targets that I've seen from different prediction. Basically the investment banks out there. This is going to be not terrible for the hobby game industry. And I'd like to point out again that we have been, in the past, a recession-proof industry. Every time we've seen a downturn in the economic cycle, our industry survives, potentially even thrives, depending on the type. And then, of course, we come back strong when it comes out and we go back into a growth cycle again. So all of this is, again, my optimistic view. But at the moment, I'm liking the fact that when people have to be at home and not go anywhere, that they're going to be playing games. And guess what? As long as they're still working, they're going to be buying games. And I think things are going to be okay in general terms for our industry.
And so just finally then, what are the ramifications of Gen Con and, God forbid, for me at least, Essen being cancelled this year? Because it's at the moment a distinct possibility. What would that do to the industry, do you think?
The ever positive me is saying that I don't believe that's going to happen, Gen Con or Essen cancellations. I do not believe that's going to happen. In fact, I'm even hopeful, though cautious. Of course, this is a rough one, that we'll see Origins in June happen. So again, we have to, this is a wait and see kind of thing. As what will happen if, right, those are the two biggest events, right? We have, and the UK Games Expo, of course, right? So those are maybe the three biggest, in the various locations. It certainly would be a bad event from a revenue perspective. These conventions are not very significant to the bottom line. They're just not, because the costs of being there are so high. So we do not base our revenue projections, our profitability is not tied to going to those conventions. However, we would lose, of course, the marketing buzz that comes out of those conventions, and we certainly rely on that. Having said that, guess what? I have a feeling that some smart people in this industry will figure out other ways of ensuring that we're going to be doing great marketing to everybody who's going to be like, I can't be at Gen Con, or I can't be at Essen. What's the new stuff? We're still going to bring out new games. So we're going to figure out ways of getting those new games in front of gamers, be it the videos, be it extra Board Game Geek marketing, sending things to local game stores, as they open up again. We will figure it out. And my positivity for this is that we will all get through this. I want everybody to hear that out there. We will get through this. And we will get through this together. And in the end, not only will the industry be stronger, we will be stronger as people because we've fought another unseen enemy and we're going to win this thing. And that's my biggest positivity that I can give out to everybody.
Well, brilliant, Stephen Buonocore. Thank you so much. And don't let the enforced solitude make you drink all of that Game of Thrones whiskey.
I'm rationing it out very, very a little bit at a time. Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate it.
If you want to support content like this, you can go to patreon.com/5G4D. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, and if you can, stay at home.